it be great if you can just ask questions to your tabular data? In this case, if you're using Python, Pandas is a library that you would be using a lot. So you can just chat with Pandas using Pandas AI. Yes, you can use artificial intelligence capabilities powered by OpenAI or other open source libraries like OpenAssistant and ask questions to the Pandas data frame and get answers back. And that is what we are going to see. We're not just going to see about the library itself, but we are going to do a hands-on with the Google Colab notebook. I'll share the Google Colab notebook with you. This is the Colab notebook that they have given as part of the repository. So it's not my completely own creation. We're also going to see certain aspects of it. For example, we're going to first learn what is this library. This library is Pandas AI. You can do pip install Pandas AI. So when you install this library, you need to also install OpenAI library. And after you do that, you can now just simply ask questions from your Pandas data frame. For example, if you have got a data set like this, you can just go and ask which are the 5 happiest countries. And the above code will give you an answer like this, and then you can start using it. You can ask more questions and it will start giving you answers. One of the most important thing is you need OpenAI API key for this, or you can also use OpenAssistant API key. In this case, you need to use your Hugging Face API key to use OpenAssistant, which is another open source large language model. It is released under MIT license, which means it's a permissive license and you can use it for a lot of things. Now that's enough of talking. Now I'm going to get started with the Google Colab notebook. I'm demonstrating this on Google Colab notebook. The same will be linked in the YouTube description, but you can use this on your local machine as well. You don't have to necessarily do it on Google Colab notebook. The first thing that you need to do is you need to install all the dependencies. In this particular case, we are going to install Pandas AI and OpenAI. Pandas AI is a main library, and OpenAI, we are installing it so that we can authenticate the current session or the Pandas AI session with our OpenAI API token. Once you have successfully installed those two libraries, now you need to do 4 imports. The first one is Pandas, the second one is Pandas AI, and the third one is OpenAI, and the fourth one is OpenAssistant. Just a disclaimer, at this time of recording, May 1st, OpenAssistant was showing some error. There is a separate GitHub issue that is tracking that. I hope it's a very small issue, the developers will fix it. So as part of this demo, I'll show you the code for OpenAssistant, but we are not going to run the code for OpenAssistant because, like I said, May 1st, there is an error, but most likely in a couple of days, this error should have been fixed. Now we have imported all the required libraries. Now the next thing is we need a data frame. We can import or download any data frame, but in this particular case, I've decided to use the same data frame that they've given as part of the example. So in this data frame, we have got 3 columns: country, GDP, happiness index. We can in fact see the data frame df.head, and that will display the data frame for us. So we can see what all are there in the data frame. Country is there, GDP is there, happiness index is there. We're going to use this data frame to ask questions using artificial intelligence powered by OpenAI. For that to happen, we first need to get the OpenAI API key. I've got a lot of tutorials where I've shown you how to get OpenAI API key. Get your OpenAI API key and then add it in the variable OpenAI underscore API underscore key. And now you can add it as part of the API token and use the wrapper OpenAI and assign it to an object called LLM. Now we can use this LLM inside our Pandas AI wrapper. So we are going to instantiate a new object called Pandas underscore AI, and that is going to take the LLM and use this Pandas AI to create that object. And that is going to help us question the data set or the data frame in this particular case. So what we are going to do is we are going to say Pandas underscore AI equals Pandas AI of the LLM. So the LLM that you created here is what we are going to use to question this. And to start with, after we have instantiated this particular object Pandas underscore AI, now we have to say Pandas underscore AI dot run. So that means we are expecting it to run this particular query. And what is this query here? The first object or the first argument that we are going to send it to this function or the method is the DF, the data frame that we have created. The next one is we are going to give the prompt in English, which is the actual question. So the natural language question that we want to ask or answer from this data frame is what we are going to ask here. So in this particular case, We are going to ask which are the 5 happiest countries. Before we even see the answer, let's look at this. We can see that the 5 happiest countries, in this case, we can see its happiness index is United States, Canada, Australia, United Kingdom, and Germany. So these are the 5 countries in this particular order. As you can see, 7.3, 7.3, 7.3, 7.2, 7.0. These are the top 5 countries in terms of happiness index. Now, we didn't specifically mention happiness index in our question, but we said which are the 5 happiest countries. And as you can see, it says according to the data, the top 5 happiest countries are United States, Canada, Australia, the UK, and the Germany. And you can see it has given the answer in the right order. So which means we know that this solution works. Before we move on to the next question, I would like to quickly show you how you can do the same if you are using open source or open assistant as a large language model. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to define your Hugging Face API key. So Hugging Face, if you go to your Hugging Face account, you can go find the token where you have got the Hugging Face API key. That API key is something that you need to assign for this object, hf underscore API underscore key. Once you have successfully assigned it there, then you need to create another object. So like the same LLM we created, you can create another object. If you are not using OpenAI, then you can write it in the same name LLM. But because I already have something called LLM, I'm using a different name here, OA underscore LLM. Inside that, I'm using Open Assistant, which we imported at the start of the code. So you can see we have imported Open Assistant. So the same Open Assistant is what we are going to use here. So we're going to use that Open Assistant and then say the API token is hf underscore API underscore key. So while Open Assistant does not require any API key, so the way this program accesses Open Assistant is through Hugging Face API. So that's why you could see this API key is being used. But you can modify this code in such a way that you do not need to use an API key, but then you would need a GPU to run. As you know, I'm not running this on a GPU, I'm simply running this on a CPU. That's why it's using the API route. Just like I said before, on May 1st, this code does not work, especially the Open Assistant code, but I hope this code will be fixed by the developer in the future. That's why I decided to give you the code in itself. Then it's quite simple. All you have to do is create a new object and use Pandas AI and use Open Assistant underscore LLM as the object here, like as a parameter, and then you can use this to run. Now I'm going to move these two to the bottom of the code so that it doesn't disturb whatever we are doing, but this code will be shared as part of the Google Colab notebook. So in the future, if you want to use Open Assistant, you can directly use the code here. So let me can say this is Open Assistant. So now getting back to our first code, which we ran to say pandas underscore AI dot run, which are the 5 happiest countries. Now it doesn't, like for me, let's say I don't want just the country names. I want to know what are the GDP of the countries that are happier. For example, I want to know if these are the top 3 happiest countries. I want to know their respective GDP. What is the GDP of United States? What is the GDP of Canada? What is the GDP of Australia? So now let me go ahead and then create the question. What to say, what are the names and GDP of the happiest countries? So as you can see, it has ran the code and it is giving the response. The happiest countries and their GDPs are listed as follows. United States with a GDP of this one, Canada with a GDP of this one, and Australia with a GDP of this one. And if we go back to our data, you can see US, Canada, Australia, and we have got the right set of numbers, the GDP numbers. So to show you that I'm not actually joking around, I'm going to run the same thing again. So, but a different question. What other thing that we can answer from this question? So we can say, what is the country with the lowest GDP? We can say, what is the countries with lowest GDP? Let's ask, what are the countries with lowest GDP? Put a question mark, ask this question. It's going to get us the answer. So let's see. According to the data, the countries with lowest GDP are these things: Japan, Australia, Spain, Canada, and Italy. And you can see Spain, let me reorder it. Japan, Australia, Spain, Canada, Italy. Okay, cool. So that order is perfect. Japan, Australia, Spain, Canada, Italy. However, it's important to note that GDP is not the only factor that determines a country's overall well-being. The happiness index is also taken into account. So that's another important aspect, that it tells us that GDP doesn't alone define whether the country is good to know go or no. Let me ask one more question. If I don't know if it will answer, if I have to choose a country to migrate, which one will you recommend based on GDP and happiness index? If I have to choose three countries, let's say three countries to migrate, I'm honestly not sure if it will answer, because this is not a direct question for the particular data frame in itself. Okay, it says based on GDP and happiness index, I would recommend the United States, China, or Germany as a potential countries to migrate to. So as you can see, that it doesn't simply answer only from the data set in itself. While I mean, like, it uses the data set data to answer, you can ask more nuanced questions that can give you a better response about data. I can very well already imagine like how people in C-suite, like CEOs, CXOs, who always like to ask simple questions, but a lot of organizations waste a good data science resource for doing these kind of menial tasks, which is quite obvious because all you have to run is a simple SQL query or a simple Pandas code can answer this. But now we know that Pandas AI can answer this. But there are certain concerns that I wanted to highlight before I close up the video. First thing is, this uses an API, whether you are using Open Assistant or whether you are using the OpenAI, the data is actually being sent to the particular server, particular service provider, the large language model service provider, and it gets back. For a lot of companies, especially in data science, data is the holy grail, which means not a lot of companies would be happier to send their data to external service. If you're a small company, or if you're in the business where you do not care about this, or if you are using a hobby project, this works pretty well. It's quite fine. But if you're part of a corporation where data is the holy grail, then this may not be applicable. So please consult your legal department before you use anything like this. The second bigger issue is this, because it uses large language model, it is still prone to prompt injection, a technique where somebody can manipulate your data or somebody can delete your data, which means the same prompt can be used to manipulate and give a wrong answer as well. So keep these two things in mind. First, the legality of using this in your own setup. The second one is prompt injection. I've got a separate video about prompt injection, which I'll link it in the YouTube description. But this, in simple language, it's a way to use prompt to give undesired result or manipulate the output of a large language model. So these two are the concerns because this uses large language model. But other than that, this is a wonderful project. It's a project that I think will put smile on a lot of data scientists who are not worried about losing their job, of course. But this can be used in conjunction with Pandas, not a replacement of it, like I said. And you can see, go star the repository, give a shout out to the developer. This is an amazing repository, Pandas AI and the Google Colab notebook. Both these details will be linked in the YouTube description. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. Otherwise, looking forward to hear your comments. See you in another video. Happy prompting.